Sarah, good to go on your side? Perfect, thank you. Well, good evening, everybody. It is 6 o'clock, so I will call to order the regularly scheduled meeting of Monday, December 30th, 2024. Please join me for a flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I don't know if I've ever said a regularly scheduled Monday meeting. It feels interesting to be here tonight. The Assembly of the City and Borough of Sitka would like to respectfully acknowledge the traditional First People of Sitka. With gratitude, we proceed on Tlingit Ani. Sarah, roll call, please.
There we go. Mayor Eisenbeis.
Present.
Mr. Yestad.
Here.
Mr. Christensen.
Here.
Mr. Celine.
Here.
And Assembly members Pike, Carlson, and Mosier are absent this evening.
Thank you. Barely have a quorum, so we can continue this evening. Any correspondence or agenda changes? Seeing none, that'll bring us to special reports this evening. We have a scheduled special report from the school district. Welcome.
Phil Burdick, Sitka School Board President. I just wanted to give you a quick update on our last meeting, and I also wanted to just kind of keep it on my radar that I should come every month. Mostly the work that has happened was our budget work session that I wanted to keep you apprised of. We'll be presenting the numbers and a more formal presentation at our joint work session on January 16th. But right now it looks like even if the legislature comes through with a $680 increase to the base student allocation, we're still looking at about a $2 million deficit for the Sitka School District. So again, advocacy is going to be key once again at the state level. But we're going to try and do it a little bit differently this year. We really want to engage families and stakeholders. So we'll be hosting budget listening sessions around the community and at each school, and with key organizations around the city where we can get some time. It's where we will present our fiscal situation and then ask for feedback. So we're crafting some questions that will help guide those listening sessions. Some of them are around when you think about your student and their education at insert school, what's the most important thing for your family? How many students is too many in a classroom? What do you want from you or from your graduates in terms of skills and habits of mind? And how can we graduate the students that we need for the workforce, that we need for the city to continue to be a strong place to live for everybody? So that's really kind of the bigger update. We had a short meeting in December, and then of course with the holidays, everybody's been out, and Dr. Jensen injured herself, so she wasn't able to be here. I also wanted to say one other thing. I wanted to make sure I gave a public thank you to Mr. Leach and the Assembly for the support in the maintenance department and with the work that you all have been doing with that. We really appreciate that. And so I just wanted to make sure I said that because I think I forgot that last month. And so I just wanted to make sure that everybody knows that we really appreciate your support, and look forward to working with you here in a couple of weeks and through the spring. That's it. Of course, said I had to be fast.
Thank you. Moving on in special reports this evening, is there anyone here for government to government? Municipal boards, commissions, committees? Municipal departments? And students and guests for special reports? Seeing none, that'll bring us to persons to be heard. This is public participation for any item off of tonight's agenda, not to exceed 3 minutes for any individual.
Good evening. My name's Joel Hanson, and all I want to say is thank you for all the work you guys do. I just wanted to start the last meeting of the year with a heartfelt thanks for you guys putting in as much work as you do, all of you, staff, everybody. So appreciate the work you guys do. Thanks.
Anyone else for persons to be heard this evening?
Good evening, Austin Cranford. I just wanted to approach the assembly today because it was brought to our attention over the holidays that some more information has come up regarding the Sitka Animal Shelter. Specifically, it seems accurate based on what's been gathered that the animals that were in the shelter, the reason drug records didn't exist is because drugs weren't used. The evidence that we have indicates that they were killed by gunshot. And we actually know what specific officer within the PD conducted the killing of the animals by gunshot. So we are requesting that the city publicly release this information. I have already forwarded this information to the state due to them investigating the city's license for the shelter. If the city does not release this information to the public, I will release it at the next public meeting. Thank you.
Anyone else for persons to be heard? Any item off the agenda? Seeing none, that'll bring us to consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda consisting of item A, approve the following liquor license renewable applications. HPR Group doing business as Halibut Point Crab and Chowder at 4513 HPR, Suite 102 and 2. And Artown Catering LLC at 265 Catley Street. And B, approve a standard marijuana cultivation facility license renewal application for Eric Van Veen, doing business as Van Greens LLC at 224 Smith Street, units B, C, D, and E.
Second. It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Is there any public comment? Sarah?
All right, on the motion to approve the consent agenda, Mayor Eisenbeis,
Yes.
Mr. Christensen,
Yes.
Mr. Yestad,
Yes.
and Mr. Celine.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. No board appointments, no unfinished business. That'll bring us to new business tonight. Item C, please.
C, ordinance 24-32, amending Title II Administration of the Sitka General Code by updating Chapter 2.31 Library Commission, first reading.
It's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance 24-32. John, I understand we have Jess and Sandy here to give us an introduction on this one.
Yes.
Please.
I do have a question. Did you guys already read the background paper, the memorandum? So I won't bore you by going over it, or have you read it?
If you have an introduction for us, this is your time
Sandy,
to
if
give
you
us a
could just
brief
give
introduction.
Introduction so that the public and the audience members know as well.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right. I'm thinking I'll just read this sort of.
Yeah.
Okay. So am I speaking loudly enough? Yeah, okay. So the background is that the Sitka Library Association was formed back in 1923 to establish a public library in Sitka. It was administered by a small group of dedicated volunteers and a small library board. of which I happen to be one of the members a long time ago. In 1966, the Sitka City Council adopted an ordinance creating a municipal library and the Sitka Library Board. The city would own and operate the building, and the board was in charge of running the library. And by that, I mean really in charge of it. They did the hiring of the librarian, just a lot of different things. It was a very hands-on board at that time. Now, let's see, the city and borough were unified in December 1971. And the Sitka Library Association was dissolved in 1974. I do want to note there's still something called the Friends of the Library. That's a different thing. That's a volunteer group that helps out in lots of ways, but it's not the same thing as what we're discussing tonight. So the current SGC 2.35 has not been updated in all those years. It has not been updated to reflect how it's really operated and how we're now called a commission, how the commission operates. The ordinance as it is now really says that we do all those things that we did 40 years ago, like hire a librarian and do all sorts of decision making. That's not really true now, but the ordinance has not reflected that. So now our new lawyer has gone through and updated it. I think she did a great job myself. We as a commission read through it thoroughly together and discussed it and so on. And basically what she did was just take out some words to make it a much more streamlined thing. And it makes it clear that we're just an advisory board or advisory commission. We don't frankly have any real powers other than just to listen to the librarian and to the issues and kind of hopefully be able to be advocates for the library, but we don't have a lot of specific duties. And I did bring with me the new wording, unless people already have it. Good, okay, so you guys already have it. So the purpose of this ordinance is to update the SGC Chapter 2.35 Library Commission change the current code to update the frequency of meetings and the duties of the commission, most specifically the duties of the commission. No financial expenditures are necessary for this. It's just, a change in the actual ordinance to reflect what we actually do and don't do. And so we recommend as the commission, we met 2 different meetings. We held a special meeting to thoroughly discuss it. And but we voted to approve it. And we recommend that the assembly adopt the updated SGC 2.35.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep.
Jess, anything or?
Thank you, Mayor Eisenbeis. This is Jessica Uremia, the library director, and I fully am behind the change in the adaptation to the code.
Perfect. If we have questions, we'll call you back up after public comment.
I have one quick question for them.
After public comment, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on ordinance 24-32? Seeing none, Tor, you had a question for Sandy or Jess?
Yeah, first thing, it's more just to recap what you said. Essentially what this does is quantify what we've already been doing for years. It's just, yeah, that was basically my only question.
And I think we'll see quite a few of these coming forward to us, not necessarily with our commissions, but just updating code to bring it into a more modern standard. A lot of it hasn't been looked in a while. The one thing I did find interesting on here is quarterly meetings instead of monthly. And I wonder how many other boards, commissions, and committees could benefit from quarterly meetings as opposed to every month. And we might get a little bit more turnout on those, like a quarterly and then a special meeting as needed type basis. So it's a thought to consider as we go forward in this. Further discussion? Sarah?
All right, on the motion to approve ordinance 2024-32 on first reading, Mr. Yestad,
Yes.
Mayor Eisenbeis,
Yes?
Mr. Christensen,
Yes.
Mr. Celine.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0 on first reading. Item C.
Great. Item D tonight is a discussion direction decision of a partnership with the Alaska Longline Fishermen's Association for a NOAA Energy transition planning and pilot testing grant to support the Sitka fishing industry. Tor and Scotty, I understand you have an introduction on this one.
Yeah, Linda Benkin reached out to us a little over a week ago. That there's apparently a grant to help with to find efficiencies in the seafood industry. And apparently, and what they've asked for is a letter from us. It has to be in conjunction with the city. And in a second, I'm going to ask Linda to come up and explain it more fuller, but this is just a letter. It's not the actual application. The application, I believe, is at least 3 months out, so that we are not committing to anything tonight. It's a letter of interest. We want to look into it. But it is kind of exciting when I talked to Linda about it, that we might be able to do some pretty cool things with some of this money. So with that, unless Scotty has any issues, I'd like to ask Linda up to explain this much better than I can.
Please, Linda.
Thank you, Mayor, and particular thanks to Assembly members Christensen and Celine for co-sponsoring this tonight, and to Sarah for getting it on your agenda. Linda Benkin, I'm Director of Alaska Longline Fishermen's Association and Board Chair for the Alaska Sustainable Fisheries Trust. Both our organizations have been working with the fleet on climate adaptation planning, looking at ways to reduce our carbon footprint and also improve fuel efficiency and provide cost savings to the fleet, recognizing that that's a place where fishermen spend a lot of money. It's starting to affect some of the decisions people make about how they fish and where we can find efficiencies and start to look into some alternative fuels. It's a win for the fleet and I think for the community, especially as we move more towards electric power for propulsion. We became aware of this grant. It's actually funded by the Inflation Reduction Act. It's been granted to a consortium of organizations that do this kind of climate adaptation planning. They have that expertise. They have resources to work with communities. They focus on frontline communities that are really feeling the effects and communities that have been historically underserved. They provide their expertise. They also offer a $100,000 grant to support community organizations working with the municipality to do climate adaptation planning. It can include pilot projects. It's up to the applicants to really decide how they want to focus that work. We would be focused on the energy transition piece. We've been working with NOAA and with 2 other fishing communities on climate adaptation planning. The energy piece is where we do see a lot of opportunity. We see a lot of interest from the processing plants to start exploring ways to reduce their use of fossil fuels and save money. We're working on some hybrid boats as a way to bring down costs and provide other benefits for the fleet. So right now, what we're asking the Assembly to do is to agree to submit this letter of interest to apply to this funding. If we are invited, they accept our letter of interest and we're invited to write a full proposal and submit that would be due in March. We would work with the city to draft that. We could do the heavy lifting, do the writing, bring it to you to consider, work with the Sustainability Commission or however you direct us in developing that proposal. And it would be submitted if you approve that next step in March and awarded soon thereafter, and funds us for a year of work to collaborate with the city in doing this kind of planning. We can be focused on energy infrastructure. We can do some pilot projects in the harbors or in the plants or on fishing boats. And I think there's a lot of this same work that you are already doing. It would provide resources to both of us to collaborate on that work. So I think that sort of covers what our ask is and what this is all about. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions on that, if that would be helpful.
Questions, Chris?
How much were you saying this grant was for?
It's $100,000 for 1 year.
Okay, all right, that was in the cost of the project, so when I was reading this, I was like, oh, the cost is 100,000, but okay, now I'm seeing that's what the grant is for, so, okay, thank you.
A couple questions for you, Linda. I'm really trying to figure this out because I kind of get where we're going with it, but I don't understand some of the next steps and processes of this. So I'll combine two of my questions into one. Number one, what is our role, meaning the municipality's role in this? And then what's your anticipated scope and scale?
So thank you for that question. The role right now is to say, yes, we'd be willing to submit this letter of interest to work with the fishing industry to do this next step of planning in energy efficiency and innovation. And that if we are invited to submit a full proposal, we are happy to write the proposal, say, here's what we're thinking of doing for the next year, and bring it to you to consider, or to sit down with whoever you direct us to sit down with to come up with a joint proposal that proposes what we would do for the next year. We have projects in the works with these 2 hybrid boats and 1 fully electric mariculture boat. There's lots more that could be done to gather data from those efforts and to support that work, to build the kind of expertise in the community to carry that work forward, that we could add these resources and this planning to those existing projects. We could tackle some other projects that the seafood plants have identified where they want to start capturing what's right now waste heat, for example, from their freezers and using it to warm other parts of the plant, maybe to explore some solar installations. Or to transition their propane forklifts to electric. There's lots of different, I think, ideas and directions we can go. We can create that scope and bring it to you, or we can work with you to create the scope together. So I think there's still a lot of opportunity to shape this as suits your interests and your time.
Okay, I think that kind of clarifies some scope and scale for me. I'm still curious on what our role is in this, but maybe my next question will clarify some of that for me. So it indicates in the approximate cost of project, the funds will be used to support your staff and then municipal staff time. So with staff time, who are you anticipating, and under how much work are you anticipating?
Yeah, thank you. So Bree, your sustainability coordinator, Bree, has been participating in the climate adaptation planning that we've been doing so far. It's been great to have her input. She's been sharing with us what you guys are learning from the work that you're doing with the energy audit on the town. So it could support her time in working with us. She could share her ideas on what next steps could be, that if we are moving more towards hybrid boats, what kind of changes would be needed in the harbor to support that quick charge that will be needed by boats when they're in town. It really can take a lot of directions, and we would look to you to suggest who we should work with. But certainly Bree comes to mind as someone who's been participating in the process we already have ongoing.
Okay, so you're anticipating this being more than just a pass-through?
We would like to be collaborating with the city. I think it's really up to you. If you feel like you don't have the staff resources to dedicate to this, we can do the work and share with you what we're doing and get your input. If you want to have a lot of input in shaping it, we're open to that. I think really we are willing to tackle whatever part of this work is more than you want, but to bring the city into the planning to the extent you have the resources, staff resources to do that. And this would provide funding to support that work in that time.
Okay, yeah, helps clarify for sure. Trying to fit this into our budget process, our staff process, our strategic plan for the next couple of years and make sure that this is in line with all of those. And then my last question, you'd mentioned fossil fuels in our fish plants, reducing those. Propane in the forklifts would be the one, but I'm unaware, are they burning diesel right now with generation? Because I thought they were on our hydro as well for the most part.
So there is quite a bit of diesel being used. So they're using a flatbed truck to take fish over to the airport. That's a pretty high cost. Fishermen come in, we borrow their trucks, we borrow their cars for running errands.
Okay, so
and
operations of the plant, not the plant itself.
Right.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, that clarifies. Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, and I know sorry, Sean, in their conversations with SPC, they've identified some pretty significant cost savings if we're able to do some of these energy transitions within the plant.
Okay.
And it's, with planning support and some funding, they're interested in doing that.
Okay. John, you had something?
I do. Thank you, Mayor. Couple questions, and I'll apologize off the bat. I'm unfamiliar because it came in after I already was leaving the office for the holiday, and I had some higher priority issues to tackle today. But just a couple questions I have. I know this is a letter of intent, but if we move forward in the grant, who is the grant applicant, and then who will do the grant management?
So the grant process requires a community-based organization and a municipality to work together and then to work with a science expert. And they can assign that, or you can pick someone we would like to work with someone at NOAA on that. So it would be a joint application. We are happy to manage the grant if that reduces the burden on the city. I would look to meet sort of your capacity and your interest in this.
Yes, please. Tor?
Hey, Linda, just real quick, because I understand this, we would be submitting this to NOAA, correct?
No, it's actually to a group called the Climate Smart Community Initiative, and it's a consortium of, I think it's 8 organizations that are listed on their website. So NOAA is part of that consortium and part of
I just need to know who to, when I do the motion to say we're going to send the letter to.
Okay, the letter goes to CSCI, the Climate Smart Community Initiative.
Okay, if I make a motion, guys, or do you want?
Linda, I just got a question.
Sure.
Just thinking about the propane to cook sea cucumbers, and like with nobody buying sea cucumbers in Sitka versus paying for propane to get here versus propane being cheaper in Juneau, that's the reason why nobody buys sea cucumbers here, because that edge is so narrow that they can't afford to.
Right. Yeah, I think there's lots of benefits in terms of bottom line and opportunities opened up. I think what I'm hearing from the plants, they also see some real market benefits to reducing their carbon footprint and making that part of their marketing story.
All right, I move to ask city staff to submit this letter of interest to the Climate Smart Community Initiative before January 10th. Is that correct? Need a second.
Second.
Thank you for your time, Linda. It's been moved and seconded to approve sending this letter of interest on before January 10th. Is there any public comment?
Good evening. The name is Austin Cranford. I just wanted to state that I am in favor of the city putting this forward. Not only is the Longliner Association willing to take on a majority of the work, it sounds like, it also is helping a struggling industry that is still one of our vital industries here in Sitka. And when you help companies cover their bottom line, in theory, the cost savings ends up going to their employees or newer jobs and therefore helps the city economy. So I hope the city approves this. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Assembly members, my name is Eric Jordan, and first of all, I want to echo earlier comments and thank you all for your wonderful work and time. After decades of doing that myself, I've retired from those kind of positions. And it's amazing how much more free time I have to do things I really want to do at home, like play with my kiddies. The reason I step forward here is I have a long history of working on collaborative projects that incidentally to our purpose have saved us all kinds of carbon emissions. For example, the fact that we have chums in our hatchery programs that the city supported saves the fleet untold amount of fuel because they come right here in our neighborhood and we can catch them locally. Supporting the Sockeye Readout Management Plan, which this assembly did, means that we can harvest sockeye right close to town. That run has been built from less than 10,000 when we started that project to fertilize and manage it, to over 330,000 estimated sockeyes returning to Redoubt Lake this year. It is the biggest subsistence harvest of sockeye in Southeast Alaska, and our residents don't have to spend fuel going down all the way to Necker and crawfish and redfish or up to West Chichikov over to Lake Eva to get sockeye. So it's saving us all kinds of money. And I mean, all kinds of fuel. In the troll fleet, the fact that we are out here fishing chums instead of chasing cohos and king salmon up and down the coast, a significant percentage of our fleet is saving all kinds of fuel. The amount of fuel diesel I consume has gone from over 300,000 gallons a year to this year 720 gallons. Working together collaboratively with groups like the Alaska Longline Fishermen's Association, and you've heard about our crew apprentice program. One of my star crew members, Emily Scott, is now working full-time for Alpha and doing a wonderful job. This year I had 25 different people, mostly new people, paired with experienced people most of the time. And Alpha is doing wonderful work. They are great to work with. I strongly support you partnering with Alpha again. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Mayor.
Stephen works too.
Good evening, Joel Hansen here. I just wanted to add kind of a little factual information to lend some urgency to this kind of audit. There's a natural resource focused a fundamental research firm called Goring and Rosenzweig Associates that does a lot of work on energy systems around the world and in the United States. And their most recent inventory commentary letter includes this cautionary investment advice. And this is a quote from their report. Quietly and without much fanfare, both shale oil and shale gas appear to have passed their zenith several months ago. Recent data from the Energy Information Agency reveals that shale crude oil production reached its high water mark in November of 2023, only to slide 2%, roughly 200,000 barrels a day since then. They go on to say that the trajectory from here, according to our models, looks steeper still. So, it takes years to develop alternative energy sources. Everyone here probably knows that it's going to take a long time. to develop, if we ever develop, wind turbine resources for additional power here in Sitka, or wave resources, or additional hydropower resources. But it also takes years to develop ways to address a declining resource. And that's what this project will do. It will look at ways to address future declining fossil fuel resource availability issues, which may seem like a very abstract notion at the moment, but it's coming. So that's all I have to say. Thank you very much. I hope you approve this this proposal. Thanks.
Anyone else this evening on submitting the letter of interest? Back to the assembly for any further deliberation? Tor?
Yeah, I just want to make one point that this doesn't commit us to anything. It's just, in fact, it may not make it past this. If we put this letter in and we don't get chosen, that's that. And if it does get chosen and then we put a full application in, however that, then we'll get another chance to approve that. So, to me, I don't think we lose anything. The letter's already written. And if it doesn't get any further, okay, we tried. And if it does, then we, like I say, we get another shot at approving it where we can get down to brass tacks.
Chris?
I know when I first started going over this, you know, I think this brings up a lot of good. I like some of the ideas that Linda was throwing out there. The part about capturing some of that heat that the freezers create, that actually really excites me. I think it's utilizing energy that right now is just being put off into the atmosphere. So I think that's a great idea. Couple of the concerns I had that you started to address one there, Stephen, was do we have the staff time to dedicate towards this? It sounds like Alpha might be willing to take on a lot of that, which is helpful. And so it kind of eases my mind a little bit there. But the other one is, if this grant is going through the municipality, how does this work with the way that we usually do things? We generally put things out to a competitive bid. Is that what's going to happen here? Should it happen here? I guess that's just kind of one of my concerns and questions I have at this point, and I don't know if that's a question to John or how we move forward with this.
I can try, and granted, we're not at the grant stage yet.
Yeah.
But those are some of the notes that I wrote down as a joint application. It will need to get reported on our single audit. I don't think that's a big deal per se. And I don't know, it would require some more exploring and learning to see if our city procurement code would apply. So I don't know the answer to that right now.
Okay.
Yeah, and John, it sounds like you're tracking how I'm tracking. I'm interested in the project. I think that there's a lot of benefits that could happen from it. But definitely just identifying who the lead grantee is on this, who's taking those roles, who's assuming a lot of the duties, and then who is going to be the direct beneficiary of. Like, obviously fishermen are the beneficiary of, but you know, is this an Alpha-led project, and Alpha gets not and wouldn't get most of, but kind of directs the project, or is it a municipality led? I think those are questions that can be hashed out as we go forward in this, should we get to the next stage. But it's definitely stuff that before we put in a grant application, I think needs to be well known and publicized. Anything further from the assembly? Sarah?
All right, on the motion to ask city staff to submit this letter of interest to CSCI before January 10th. Mr. Christensen?
Yes.
Mr. Celine?
Yes.
Mr. Yestad?
Yes.
And Mayor Eisenbeis.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. That would bring us to persons to be heard this evening. This is public for participation for any item on or off tonight's agenda, not to exceed 3 minutes for any individual.
For the record, Joel Hansen. I just have a brief update on the community garden project that I'd like to share. We are getting closer to the point where the assembly will hear a kind of a second round of the RFP's terms and conditions that were included in the RFP that you saw that came before you several months ago. Some of the terms and conditions were perceived to be difficult for us to try to achieve. And so there has been a negotiation session, and Amy and I have gotten together, the Director of Planning and Community Development, Amy Ainsley, have gotten together several times to discuss what those terms and conditions might be, how they might be modified to meet both our needs and the city's needs going forward. And I think we're getting close enough to where perhaps at the next assembly meeting, those terms and conditions may be presented to you all. And I just wanted to give you a heads up on that so that you know that it's coming, and so that you know why I'm giving you a call. I'm going to try to meet with as many assembly members as I can during the next couple of weeks to see if I can provide you with more information on what this project is all about and what those terms and conditions might be, so that you're not taken totally off guard at the next meeting and have to think about it kind of on the hoof. One of the things that we were hoping that might be something that the city would be able to achieve is a seasonal reduction in the utilities that we're going to be required to use at the site on Jarvis Street. It's not a deal breaker. We can come up with the funding to pay for utilities, but it would make our operating costs a lot less if we could be put on a kind of a seasonal thing. And it's not a policy that the city currently allows, so it would have to be a special exemption. But I don't want this to high center the whole project. So just to let you know that this is something that we're hoping can be achieved, but it's not something that is a game ender for us. And I'd love to talk with each of you individually if you have time over the next couple of weeks to discuss in greater detail what our interests and what our limitations are. So thank you very much.
Anyone else under persons to be heard? Any item on or off tonight's agenda? Seeing none, that'd bring us to reports. I have no report this evening. Goodbye 24, hello 25.
I also have no report, Mayor, other than it was a quiet week over the past couple of weeks over the holidays. So just taking some time to catch up on some things in the inbox and close out some projects.
Liaison representatives? Sarah? Clerk's report? Any other reports this evening? Seeing none, that'll bring us to our executive session tonight.
I move to go into executive session to receive and discuss attorney-client communication from the municipal attorney and outside legal counsel Jermaine Dunnigan and Owens regarding legal and financial matters affecting the municipality due to the Cranford v. CBS, Wampler versus CBS, and Mace v. CBS litigation.
It's been moved and seconded to go into executive session to receive attorney-client information. Is there any public comment on entering executive session?
Good evening, Austin Cranford. I am against the assembly going into executive session. One, because the entire assembly is not here, and two, because of all three of these court cases, all three of them requested a jury trial. The only information that could be coming up in these meetings is information that is detrimental to the city itself, not to the individuals that are suing the city. So I would like to see the city communicate more with the public regarding these cases. I would like to know why we keep getting sued repeatedly year after year. But I know you'll be going into executive session anyway, so that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Anyone else on entering executive session? Sarah?
All right, on the motion to go into executive session, Mr. Yestad,
Yes.
Mr. Celine,
Yes.
Mayor Eisenbeis.
Yes.
And Mr. Christensen.
Yes.
The motion passes 4-0 and we'll be meeting in room 4.
Thank you. Assembly, take a break on your way in if you need. Motion to reconvene. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. We are reconvened as the assembly in regular session. The assembly met in executive session to hear an update on several legal matters from our council. We've received that update. Seeing no further business tonight, that brings us to adjournment.
Motion. Second.
All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Thank you, everyone, for your time this evening. We are adjourned.
Chris, did Eric